Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to Couch Conversations with the Doctors, where health is wealth. What night is it tonight? It is Monday night, and it is time for Couch Conversations with the Doctors. As always, we're going to go around introducing our esteemed panel, as always. And we're going to start with my colleague who tends to leave me and go and have fun in the sun. But we're having an Indian summer, as they call it here in Chicago. Isn't that right, Doug?
That's right, and that's why I'm back. I'm back in Chicago and enjoying everything that Chicago has to offer. I'm a retired physician. I worked in the western suburbs for 30 years, and then after that, I joined the congressman in his office. And it really opened my eyes to public health and public service. It's an honor to be on this panel with my colleagues, and we're going to try and answer your questions as best we can.
And I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Maya Green. They call me Dr. Maya 100 because I'm always keeping it 100. 100 on your health. Thanks to Nikki. Thanks to the congressman for having this platform. And I'm ready to learn and with community and have a discussion with my wonderful colleagues. So let's get it.
All right. I'm Dr. James Miller. I'm a retired internist. Retired in 2019 after practicing 42 years in and around Chicago. Even though I've retired from the practice of clinical medicine, I am still very interested in doing what I can and contributing in any way I can to heal our community. There's so many things that need to be done, but it's going to take the whole of us working together in unison to get these jobs done. So we're here tonight to discuss issues that are there, especially issues concerning health and what we can possibly do to try to make us healthier than what may exist in some parts of our population.
Coach Sean McCoy, criminal justice activist, author, entrepreneur, can speak a lot to the mental health issues that we're talking about tonight. Wrongfully convicted, did 22 years in prison, so I have a lot to add to that mental health space.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing your story and what you've gone through, and I think you can add a lot to what we have to talk about. My name is Joe Harrington. I retired in 2017, still active. Most of my work was in public health and healthcare, worked at 3 hospitals, worked for the city and state health department, and retired in 2017. And from the Illinois Department of Public Health, I was a regional health officer for Cook County and an administrative law judge. And I guess Tony is the only one, or Dr. Hampton is the only one that has not had an opportunity to introduce himself.
Definitely Tony to you, Joe. And I do
I know.
appreciate being here. Amen. The opportunity to be here. Family and obesity doc, South Side of Chicago, on a mission to help as many people, become aware that they have the power to impact their health through lifestyle changes, and most of that is driven by what's above your shoulders. If you can get your brain to believe that and then act on that knowledge, I think that we can do wonderful things, not only for individuals but for the entire country, and I would argue the world. So happy to be here. Appreciate Congressman Nikki for allowing me to be here, and let's keep rolling.
Well, let me thank all of you for being here and being there. And, all of these issues are so vital and so important and so necessary. And I guess when we talk about health, we're talking about just about everything. Because everything that you do in some way or another impacts it, has a great deal that it is related to. There are things that we can do individually. Then there are things that we need to do collectively. And all of it gets brought together So let me just thank all of you for joining us each and every Monday. And I anticipate a tremendous amount of knowledge flowing as we interact. So thank you very much. And what a day this has been already.
Outstanding. I see I've had some tech difficulties, so I thank you guys for bearing with me. Want to say hey to Sister Bonnie, who said Bonnie Spetley is here, and she says good evening to everybody. Kim Alexander Jackson is here, and she says happy Monday, doctors, and the A team of Congressman Danny K. Davis. I also want to say hey to Connie Taylor, who is here. She says good evening to everyone, and Kim also says I am curious about the team's opinion on the autism announcement. Well, we're going to get right to that just as well. We're going to try and see if we can answer some of that question for you before we got to see Tony's nine. But we've been joined by, that doctor who's the physician by day and DJ by night. That's our very own Dr. Pete. Dr. Pete, why don't you introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, guys. I'm very excited to be here. Just want to thank the congressman for having this platform, and you, Nikki, for putting it together. And looking forward to sharing with the community and learning some things from my brilliant colleagues.
You know, I was at a church yesterday, and the pastor is also a DJ, and he DJs when he's not preaching, and he makes no bones about it. And he gave a wonderful sermon, and indicated that he'd be doing some disc jockeying later on in the evening. So the multiplicity of things that people do.
Absolutely.
So of course, everyone knows that September is National Sickle Cell Awareness Month and also lupus. So Maya's going to give us a brief stint on sickle cell, and then Doug is going to give us also a brief overview on what lupus is, and then we're going to get into the guts of another conversation. So Maya.
Thanks, Nikki. As Nikki stated, this is National Sickle Cell Awareness Month. And so you may be asking, what is sickle cell? Glad you asked. Okay, so sickle cell is a genetic disease, and it's something you get from your parents. You know how that song you get it from your mama? Well, for sickle cell, you got to get it from your mama and daddy, because you need both sets, both sides to come in before you get sickle cell disease. If you just get it from one or the other, you have the sickle cell trait. So unlike everything else, you get it from your mama and your daddy. So that's one thing you can't just get from your mama, like the song says. Okay. All right. So they call it sickle because, your cells are round like a donut. Ooh, donut. All right. Donut like this. It's a fuller donut, but just imagine the circle, right? Now, if this donut wants to travel through my blood vessels, it's perfect because my blood vessel is a vessel. It's like a hole shape. And this donut this is for my dog to keep her paws nice, but I would say it was more like this, but a circle all the way around. Oh, I can't get it. More like a circle. Oh, I forgot the YouTube demonstration. More like a circle all around. Well, when sickle cell comes, then it's more shaped like this, sickle, but it has sharp edges on it, making it very hard for that blood cell to transport through your vessels, right? And this can cause blockages. It can cause pain. And guess what? If it can't transfer, your blood is carrying your nutrients, your oxygen, things like that. And if you can't get through it, not only are you damaging the vessels, but the organ gets damaged, because your organs need nutrients and oxygen to live, regenerate, do all the things. Your organs need oxygen and minerals to organ. Okay, your heart needs it to heart. Your liver needs it to liver. Do all the things that the kidney isn't doing. The kidney needs that kind of stuff. All right. So it's passed down from both parents. We already know that now. It affects predominantly African Americans, but it can also affect people of Mexican descent, Middle Eastern descent, and different populations altogether in Indian descent. Now, Common symptoms, pain. And unfortunately, we have in this country a situation where people living with sickle cell disease who experience pain sometimes, oh, I'm getting a little feedback. I don't know if we can mute. Sometimes get undertreated. You know, people don't believe their symptoms, things like that. So pain, fatigue, swelling of your hands and feet, heart problems, acute chest problems where you have to go to the emergency room, infections, delayed growth, sometimes vision problems. Why? Because your blood feeds all these organs, and now that organ can't organ, as you say, right? It's treated with medication, blood transfusions. Got to stay hydrated. You got to, if you are living, first of all, in today's environment, you got to drink your water and mind your business. But certainly, if you're living with sickle cell trait or sickle cell disease, you have to stay hydrated, so that it lubricates everything, and the cells move a lot easier. Pain management, which in some, I just want to mention, in some communities, that pain is not always managed like other communities. Bone marrow and stem cell transplant. And recently, thanks to a lot of the work of our Congress people, including Congressman Davis, I was reading up a couple of weeks ago on the work you've done on sickle cell to kind of bring and participate and let community know about CRISPR and all these gene therapies that are kind of on the horizon and available for our community. I think that's it. You know, sickle cell, you get it from your mama and your daddy. So it's not, I get it from my mama, I also get it from my daddy. Staying hydrated, but symptoms can be pain, things like that, fatigue, hand swelling, foot swelling, joint swelling, those type of things we see. And if you're living with sickle cell, especially in these long, hot summers, stay hydrated, avoid cold and hot temperatures, and a healthy intake does help. All right, I think that's it.
All right. Well,
Are
right
we
before
talking
I
about
ask
lupus?
if any of our other doctors would like to chime in on that, the Core Center sent you thumbs up. So, and that's also a reminder for me to say hey to the Core Center. Now they are working, but the Core Center is here. I also want to say hey to our guys over in the garage that are all sitting there watching. And he says, I'm glad you're back, Congressman. We watched 2 reruns, but they were good. So very good. Mary Ballinger is here just as well, and she says good evening. Alderman Pat Dow is here, and she says good evening just as well. Carrie Steele is here. President Carrie Steele, that is. And she says good evening to everyone as well. It's always sunny on Mondays. So Doug, oh wait, any of our doctors, anybody want to join in and say anything about sickle
Let
cell?
me just say this about sickle cell, because Chicago has played such a tremendous role in generating awareness, research, funding, and treatment of sickle cell. It was really in the early 1970s that sickle cell came into the arena where the federal government began to appropriate money and make some research grants available. And of course, Dr. James Bowman, who was at the University of Chicago at the time, was one of the pioneers. And of course, people who don't know, he was Valerie Jarrett's father. And and he got 2 5-year grants, which means that he worked on it for 10 years solid. Dr. Maurice Rabb pioneered at the University of Illinois here on the west side of Chicago, and he had a 5-year grant. But it was President Nixon who actually signed the sickle cell legislation. Republican president, kind of different than this president in some ways, but like this president in some other ways, because we have a lot of controversy going on around the utilization of vaccinations and vaccine. There's more controversy seemingly emanating from the federal government and in the public arena about certain methods of treatment. We have a Secretary of Health and Human Services who takes a position that many scientists disagree with. And so it's amazing that we've got this much controversy going on relative to medical treatment for and how we approach some of the diseases that exist in our country. And that's a part of the landscape as well. And I tell you, there are arguments and disagreements and discussions every day.
Nikki, is she frozen? Yeah, I just want to let people know, I've worked with the local chapter of the Sickle Cell Association. They're actually having their 8th annual Chicago Sickle Cell Summit. That's on September the 25th, so it's coming up 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's going to be virtual, and I just sent the flyer that I received uh, and to everybody who's participating. And Nikki has one, so she can share it with everybody because I don't have the ability to share. But the theme of their event is double whammy: managing comorbidities with sickle cell disease. And the keynote speaker is Kyle Jeanette, PhD. Again, that's September 25th, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's via Zoom, so it's virtual. And Nikki should have the flyer. She can share it with everybody. And I sent it to everybody. So, and I think Nikki is frozen.
So, Dr. Graham, I know Nikki wanted you to go into kind of telling us about lupus. Thank you.
So before I talk about lupus, I want to address what Kim Alexander Jackson said about the recent announcements about autism. And the best thing that I can say about that is consider the source. You're not talking, this is not coming from a physician who has academic awards, alpha, mega, alpha, summa cum laude, summa cum laude. This is not someone who has a 20-year career in research and has published 100 publications. This is coming from a politician whose international diplomacy is failing, his economic policies are failing, and is desperately trying to avoid revealing the truth about certain habits of his and certain friends and associations. So before we begin to take this as an element of truth, consider how much truth was not told during the past administration and ask yourself, is there any reason to believe there's any truth being told in this administration? And I think if we do that, we can just kind of calm down a little bit, let this pass, because history will show that there's nothing to this at all. To answer the question about lupus, lupus is a very unusual disease that we describe as autoimmune. This is where the body is attacking itself as if the body is a foreign invader. We don't know why this happens. We can't necessarily associate it to what you eat, what you drink, certain exposures. We can't associate that with, but we do know that women of color are more affected than Caucasian women. We know it begins to affect people around the reproductive years. And when there is this autoimmune disease, it releases inflammation, and that inflammation can affect the hair, the skin. It can affect the lining of the heart and the lungs. It can affect the kidneys, and it can affect the joints and the skin. So it can affect many different parts of the body. And we're living in a very interesting time where in the first 3 decades of my career, there were no new treatments. We now have several new treatments for lupus. So it's a much more manageable and treatable disease than it has ever been. And I know that there's progress that's being made regularly, and hopefully the change in funding will not slow that down. It is a manageable disease. And I have seen young children affected at age 10 have treatment and live to get married, have to get an education, and have children. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the terrible disease that one might read about in some of the older textbooks.
Well, outstanding.
Nikki,
Did any of our other doctors want to have anything to say about I'm sorry,
I'm gonna piggyback on what Doug said, and it
Maya,
looks
you
like
were
he
saying something?
froze.
no, I think Mr. Harrington is trying to say something. Then I'll say something after him. I was going to go back to what Dr.
Okay.
Graham,
Okay.
something Dr. Graham said too. So go ahead, Mr. Harrington.
Yeah, I was just
Go
gonna
ahead, sir.
piggyback on. Can you hear me? I'm unmuted.
No, yeah, we hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was just going to go back to what Doug said, and I think we're living in perilous and dangerous times because we have a captain at the helm of our ship that appears to be at times unhinged, and that may or may not be the case, but sometimes it appears to be the case. But he also has brought some people in, particularly to the CDC, that really should not be there and may not, in fact, be qualified, and he went in with a reputation of being an anti-vaxxer. And so what we're seeing now is pushback on things that many of us know have really stemmed the tide of many diseases because we have vaccines for a lot of things. And to blanketly say that vaccines are dangerous and should be eliminated is really concerning. I serve on the board of Cook County Health. We recently had a press conference about measles and the measles vaccine because measles is on the uptick. I mean, you can say, well, it doesn't have anything to do with vaccine, but we've seen an outbreak in other areas of the country, and measles is on the rise in the city of Chicago. So the best advice I could give anybody, if you have a doctor, talk to your doctor. Don't listen to what's being said. Talk to your doctor. He can help you navigate this, and he can tell you whether or not what you should do and when you should do it. That it's interesting because we're going into flu and COVID seasons, and we could have a significant outbreak of flu, and people don't realize there are a lot of people that die every year just from something like the common flu. Uh, COVID is not under control. We never reached herd immunity, and we're going to cold and flu season, and people need to know what kind of COVID shot to get. And there's a lot of controversy around that, or if it will be paid for. What I say, you need to talk to your doctor. If you don't have one, you need to find one and talk to them and get advice from somebody that you build a relationship with, and you can trust.
The only thing I
Yeah.
say about this subject is the very first young lady that I hired as a receptionist after I got elected to Congress died from lupus, and we've done memorials for her
Mhm.
and set up a scholarship at one time. But she was, and I think she was like maybe 21, 22 years old.
Oh wow. Wow. Well, Mary Ballinger says, "Thank you, Dr. Graham, for for addressing lupus. I have a cousin in her 80s that has been battling this disease since the early 90s. It also says it is a pleasure to see and so beneficial to be fed so much vital information from you all. So thank you so much, Mary Ballinger. I want to say hey to AV King. I want to say hey to AV, who is here with us, to Dwayne Banks, who is here with us. Kathy Jones is here just as well. Danny is here with us. Our clerk, Mariana Spiropoulos, is here with us. And also Donna Miller, Commissioner Donna Miller is here. So I want to say hey to all of them just as well. So our guest, Tyshawn McCoy, is here with us. And we were going to have a conversation about, we were going to have a conversation about stress and anxiety and how we deal with that, especially with this change of season. I know we're going to begin to go into the fall, and then we suffer from that. Was it the holiday blues and all of that stuff is coming up? So I know Maya she had a platform at one point in time when she talked about anxiety. So I don't know if Maya, if you want to start and pose some questions, or if Tyshawn, if you want to start. I mean, I have a question for you. When we talk about anxiety and we talk about depression, 20 plus years ago, when you were standing in a courtroom and they gave down the verdict guilty, and you know that you had not done anything, had not even been there, and you know that all of this was so untrue, and then they gave you a sentence, how did you feel?
Well, it knocked the air out of me, and I was just immediately depressed because I knew that the road that I was going down, it was going to be very mentally challenging. I already knew that. And just the 3 years that I sat fighting the case, knowing that there was no beating the case, and just knowing that I was going to the penitentiary, usually having to wrap my mind around that, it was just devastating because there was no way out. And you kind of develop a defeatist attitude. It's hard to really get up and fight when you know the deck is stacked against you. It's extremely hard to just ascertain in your mind that you may be sitting down, for the next 25, 30 years of your life, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's horrible.
And how
Well,
many
let me
years
ask
did you
you.
do before you were exonerated, before they found out that you? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Congressman.
No, go ahead and finish. I'm,
Congressman?
yeah, go
No,
ahead.
no. Go ahead.
Well, my question to Sean.
Oh, no. I was.
I think there's a delay.
Let me thank you for being with us, and for I've noticed during the brief period that I've known of you, and the brief period that I've had some interaction in relationship to what you've been through. I noted a very positive attitude, and that's been most amazing. How did you maintain, after what you've endured, such a positive attitude about life, and how you can use yourself in such a way as to perhaps help others?
Well, I look at it like this: there are more years behind me than there are in front of me. So I have to make the most of the time that I have left. And one thing that I know about being bitter, it consumes you. So I have to have a positive outlook on life and make the most of the time that I have left on this earth. So I think it's my job or my duty to be used as a vessel to, shed light on, you know, the things that's going on in the criminal justice system, the flaws, and also, shedding light on conversations such as these with mental health and how it affects you. But I just look at my life at this point just as a mission to help as many people as I can, to reach as many people as I can.
Did you get any mental health help while you were incarcerated?
No, sir, none. I had to hold myself together. I had no shoulders to lean on, no one to really talk to. I had to just dig deep within myself and really counsel myself in my own head. Just tap into my inner strength and my resilience and gut my way through it. And a lot of times that's very, very hard to do when you have no shoulder to cry on, no one to really talk to, or anyone who can empathize with you. You just have to just bite the bullet and you know go through the fire.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd like.
Well,
Yeah,
let me
I'd
say
like to
something
say.
real quick. Let me just throw something in here real quick from through the lens of a doctor. And let's be clear: how we perceive the trauma of what our guest has experienced is going to vary depending on, like, you can have a something that seems much less traumatic and you still may perceive it traumatically. So part of what we have to recognize, if you have somebody in your life who has a traumatic moment, you know, it may for them feel just as dramatic as our guests. So that's number one. Number two, one thing I try to tell my patients is when you're bitter, it's like corrosive to you. It's like a
It
poison,
is.
keeps you mentally tied up in that event, that situation, and it won't even allow you to heal. So, and it's easier said than done. That's why we love therapy and coaching and support, but it really it can destroy you. And so so you don't want to, because and when I think about, for me as a metabolic doc, stress from something like that will increase your stress hormone cortisol. Now you got all this extra sugar floating around in your body because your stress hormone is high. That leads to inflammation and all of these other downstream effects that can harm you. So a person who's been through what he's been through may later have risk for a heart attack or stroke or dementia just because of that previous trauma. So it's important that when you've been through trauma that you find a way to heal. And the only other thing I'll say is that in order to change your perspective, you have to feed your brain and feel that if your brain was a cup, fill that cup with something that's at the opposite of what you've experienced. So even this morning, I was listening to Anthony Robbins, and there's so many inspirational speakers, Les Brown, Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher, etc. And sometimes I start my day with that, having not been through what he's been through, but I still do it because I need to go to work with an attitude that will get me through the day. And I think we all can benefit from giving ourselves some positive reinforcement so that when the negativity comes, that cup that you just filled won't even have a lot of room for the negative. So just that's how you become resilient. You don't get resilient by hoping for it. And dare I say, praying for it. Praying for it is an interesting concept because praying for it then leads to you having to take an action based on that prayer. You don't just pray and then just don't do anything. You pray and then you'll have a moment like this where you'll hear a voice like mine or others on this live stream. And then you take that voice and that information to behave differently and to act differently. So it's okay to pray for something, but I need you to do something once you get the signals of what to do.
So I'll step in here and oh, Mr. Harrington, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Now you go ahead, Maya. I'll wait.
Okay.
I'll be patient.
Okay. Mr. McCoy, I'll do my spiel, but I think you were getting into the guidance we need from you on how you move through this when someone is in there and your kingship was tested. I'm glad you were able to hold together your kingship, King. And so I'm going to go ahead and do what Nikki said, right? Okay. So Nikki asked me to talk a little bit about depression and anxiety. Sometimes we hear them all together. No, they are not the same. Can they come together? Absolutely. Can they come separately? Yes. Can they occur at the same time within us? Absolutely. So anxiety is, people call it a state of worry, but it's way more than worry. It's an intense fear or unease. And for those of you that know those topics, the body keeps the score, things like that. It's an intense fear or unease that can show up in your body. Racing thoughts can lead to racing heart, tight chest, shortness of breath, trouble sleeping. Because of that, you're always in that fight or flight mode. You're always turned on. And then irritability, constant worry, or panic anxiety, right? There's a questionnaire that you can get from your healthcare provider to help kind of find out where you are and move you through that. I'll move also to depression. Depression is a state of being where you feel lower or sad or down. A lot of people experience it can be triggered by it can be turned on by a lot of things, life experiences, sometimes a change in sunlight or weather. Right about now, as the weather changes, we have a seasonal impact due to less and less sun. You see where it's darker longer now, that many people feel. So be aware of that. Depression looks like feeling hopeless or empty. With that, you can have a loss of interest. The things you used to love to do, people are like, hey, you like to go roller skating, you like to go out to dance, you like to go out to eat. Do you want to do that? And some of my patients have described it as, hey, doc, my get up and go got up and went, right? Sleeping too much, a change in appetite, or thinking you're kind of bothering people. And so you kind of isolate. Both of them can cause you to isolate, and that's a part of the cycle, you know. And then in that cycle, they can increase. But it's important to remember a lot of people go through it. Some of it, like Mr. McCoy's, can be brought to them through other circumstances, had nothing to do with them. And some of it can be chemical, but your healthcare provider can help you tease that out. And so their medical conditions. So a lot of times in the communities I grew up with, people don't talk about it. They just kind of just try to meditate, but there are resources that can help. Talk therapy with a therapist, somebody skilled to kind of talk you through that is like number one gold standard. And then there are medications if needed and different things. Exercise can get those endorphins going, get, you know, and get the dopamine going and kind of move you in the right direction. But for everybody who has experienced it, including myself, it's a step out of it, one foot behind the other, day by day. You can do it, and then certainly reach out. There are a lot of resources to help you with that. So number one, if you're feeling it, talk to a provider. That can be your medical provider you trust. Definitely want you to include a medical provider, because some of it is chemical. A lot of us think it can be, and some of it can be spiritual, some of it can be physical, some of it can be environmental, but there is a chemical shift, and the person that can help you with that chemical shift is your medical provider. You can talk to your spiritual providers, you can talk to a lot of people, but with that chemical shift, please go to the medical provider. Move your body around again. Stay connected. A lot of times if you feel isolated, that'll feed you into the cycle. You want to limit the self medications like alcohol or drugs that you take, because a lot those do offer escape. But on the other side of that, you didn't like the talk therapy and the other stuff isn't there to remove that feeling, so it comes back and then it starts its own cycle where you use more of the alcohol or drugs to do it. Now, Mr. McCoy, do you have any tips that you want to add and to this that people can, or just what you did? I know you mentioned it. You said go inside yourself, activate your kingship. I'm glad you did that. Any other tips?
I think you touched on some very important things as far as health and exercise. I tried to stay active while I was active. You know, I worked out, I ran, I played chess. You have to do things, you know, to just occupy your mind. And a lot of times out here, you can do a lot of those same things. It's really no different. Just to keep an active brain, just focus on positive things. And I
And
think
thank you.
that will definitely, you know, relieve a lot of that anxiety, a lot of that stress. Because you cannot, like, whatever's, you know, the cause of the anxiety or the stress, you can't necessarily focus on that. You got to divert your mind and your attention to something more positive and try to take your mind away from it as much as possible. That's what worked for me.
Thank you for saying that, because on top of that, I want to say,
And I don't smoke or drink, by the way. I'm totally sober.
absolutely. And so, because, and that does help you to focus your mind. And you know why I was thinking it's important to focus your mind? Because it gives me the opportunity to say this. Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Because, there's some thoughts out there with recent people saying, like, hey, look at what's happening with Black men and things like that. And Black men are being arrested at a higher rate and therefore doing things at a higher rate. And it gives me the opportunity to say, yes, you do have to focus your mind, Mr. McCoy, because I know you know that is absolutely not true. Black men are 7 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted of something than any other people, right? But guess what?
Yes.
They're also, and because of that, Black men are the rate of exoneration, and exoneration is when it's like, oh, I thought you did it, but you didn't, and there's no kind of making up for the years lost, right? But exoneration is that where they do try to at least recognize and release whatever kind of sentence they had, acknowledging that it doesn't give you back the years, right? Black men are more exonerated because they're being arrested, wrongfully convicted at higher rates. So it gives me, thank you for coming, because it gives me, and putting it in context, why wouldn't you? If you know you're in the system that's doing that, it's easy to be down. It's easy to do that. So you do have to do the things you did, activate your kingship, control your own mind, set your own true narrative, because in exact opposite of what we see circulating recently within the last couple of weeks because of some events that occurred, Black men are actually wrongfully convicted 7 times more than everyone else. But here's some positive news about Black men. I'm gonna throw it here and we're gonna get back on subject. Evidence does show that Black men are more active in their families, more active with their children, and there for their children too. So all these narratives, I just want to take some minutes to take some set something straight. I'll hand it. Thank you so much, Mr. McCoy. I just want to throw that in there. I know you knew that more than I did, but I just want to put that on top of it. When you're more active with your kids, I don't know, Black men are more active with their kids, you're being wrongfully convicted. It's very important to control your mind and your surroundings, stay active, do all those things you did. Thank you, Mr. McCoy.
So
You're welcome.
Mary Ballinger says, it is amazing to see Mr. McCoy so positive and moving forward after such a horrific ordeal. God bless you always. Lillian Frazier is here and she says, good evening to all. 2 quick questions. I have an anonymous question for Mr. McCoy, and then I also have a question for one of the doctors. So Deborah from Coleman says, hey, Congressman.
Anything.
And then she asked the question. I'm gonna bring you on as soon as I read these 2 questions, y'all. Just want to get the questions out there and they'll remember them, and then you go ahead. So Deborah from Coleman says, how do you know it's chemical? So I want the doctors to think about that, because I know Dr. 100 threw out there that sometimes anxiety and depression can be chemical. So she wants to know, how is it chemical? And then our anonymous question says, Mr. McCoy, how old were you when you went in? How many years did you do before you were exonerated? So while they're thinking about that, you go ahead, Joe.
I'm going to try to be brief. And the first thing I want to do, I want to lift up Brother McCoy, because I know what it's like to be a Black man, and I know some of the other people here that are Black men have experienced, not to the degree that you have, some of the same experience that you've had. And without going into a lot of detail, and it may help make the connection. A good friend of mine who died some years ago, Rod Pugh, he was a psychologist, PhD psychologist. He got his PhD from the University of Chicago in 1948. He served in World War II as an officer. He once told me that everything inside of us that keeps us sane, there's this same thing inside of us that can make us go in the other direction. Anybody can go off at any time based upon certain stimuli, and it causes, and I'm going to connect something to my, it causes some chemical reactions in the brain that may cause you to do some things that have you out of control. So I'm not going to get into the science of that. So I understand that, because any of us that get angry are subject to do and say something that we never intended to do. Just become emotional, and we go off in a different direction. But besides that, what I wanted to say, that Maya and I actually serve on the Cook County Health Board, and we had a presentation from the person that oversees Cook County Jail and the Juvenile Detection Center. And Cook County Health provides health services to everybody in Cook County Jail and the Juvenile Detection Center. They talked about the kind of health problems they saw, but the person that presented also said that many of these people have mental and behavioral health issues as well. They're there, they can deal with the physical problems, but they're not prepared with the volume of people that are in other things to deal with the underlying mental health and behavioral problems. But what I understand, all of us have the capacity to go in one way or another. And there could be a stimuli or something that really sets it off. But really, what I speak to more is your character, because there are people that have the same experience as you, and they would come out, they would be angrier, they would be mad, and they would do harm to other people. As they say, hurt people hurt
Hurt
people.
people.
You came out on the other side, and you were still the good person that you were. So I wanted to lift you up, because you're an exception to a lot of what we see, because a lot of people come back to our community as either better criminals or very angry and are just looking for somebody to harm. And you came back out a better man, but the fact was you were a good man when you went in there. And I don't want that to be lost, because if you had gone in there and was a worse man, you couldn't come out a better man. So you had a great experience, and I think you learned from that experience. And I think all of us just want to lift you up.
I
So
appreciate it.
I have a couple questions. Mr. McCoy, was there
Yeah.
some was there something in your family, in your upbringing, that helped you be this strong? And then once you're out, how do you approach other men and women who are in your situation? How do you counsel them and advise them and lead them?
To be honest, I don't think it had anything to do with my upbringing because everything that I had learned and been taught, uh, everything that was instilled in me, other than simple things like respect and honor and stuff like that. But prison is a world of its own,
Oh yeah.
and I think you adapt to the environment. Just like a newborn baby coming into the world, you just learns, you know, the world. And that is a world in and of itself. And you just learn it, you adapt to it, and you create a life within that space. It's like in your mind, you just say, I'm here till I'm out, and you make the most of the life that you have while you're in there. And you look up, you've done 15, 20 years.
Mm.
And what was the second part of that
How do you reach
second
out?
question?
Well, how do you reach out to other men and women who have been in your situation? How do you lead them, counsel them, support them in your work? What do you say to them?
Well, if anyone can understand these folks that's been through these traumas, it's me. And I know how disheartening it can be to have such a large portion of your life taken away. I guess it's more so just being able to empathize with them and just be just lend an ear to, hear them out and let them know that it's someone that really understands what they've been through. And that's really all you can do.
Hmm. I know, Nikki. If you don't mind, I'm just gonna take a little bit. I know Nikki wanted to talk a little bit about the science or the hormones behind the chemicals behind anxiety and depression. In this case, we're gonna call them hormones, proteins. They help regulate things, hormones. Okay. All right. So we have our serotonin. Serotonin is a baseline. It needs to feed nerves in our body at a certain rate. This amount goes here, 10% goes here, 50% goes here to make us have our day to day function. If serotonin is low, that can lead to depression. And serotonin can get low for a lot of different reasons, right? It can be medical, it can be environmental, it can be that. There's dopamine. Dopamine, I call it the happy hormone. Hey, it is the hormone that causes euphoria, all this other stuff. It can be raised by like alcohol. I mean, it can be raised by different chemicals, yes, but it can also be raised by exercise, things like that. When dopamine is low, that also can cause lack of motivation and a cycle where you have low energy and things like that. Dopamine, of course, we have a certain baseline of it just to go through every day. But when you experience stuff like that, and even knowing that black men are wrongfully convicted at 7 times the rate of white men, even knowing that, can decrease your dopamine, and experiencing that certainly can. That can put you in a cycle of depression, right? Then you have your norepinephrine. It's part of the fight or flight. It goes. Too much of it. Getting stuck in fight or flight. Panic. You can't rest. No, you get fatigue easy because you're not resting. That increases anxiety. And then you have the other one was GABA. You have your, I call it the GABA hormone. It can low GABA, just I call it GABA because it can get complicated with pain receptors and stuff like that. But low GABA can lead to anxiety, things like that, and put you in there. And then those are on the start. So I can't even get my line. Those are on the start, things that lead into that. And then once you get in those, especially fight or flight with anxiety, you have that cortisol on the other end of it, that one of the doctors, I don't know if you want to chime in, doctor said it, that said it, cortisol, that stress hormone from being in that mood, long term, things like that, begins to also wear away at your body in different ways. There's a book that kind of ties it all in about more of the experience. It's called The Weathering. Constantly being in those situations long term can lead to a chronic form of depression, a chronic form of anxiety, things like that. I'll take it back to you, Nikki, or where do you want to go from there?
I'm just gonna add a quick comment.
So the book The Weathering is the book The
Oh,
Weathering is
just
awesome, and also
yeah.
The Body Keeps the Score. I recommend that people actually read those. Go ahead, Tony.
I'm gonna be going to another meeting in a moment, but I wanted to just chime in as I wrap up my comments. And basically, the question was, how do we know it's the chemicals? And Dr. Myers basically explained, well, because we've done the research, and we know that people with anxiety and depression, when we measure serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine, GABA, et cetera, we know that these hormones are altered through research, because we use research as our litmus test. We don't use opinion. We don't use our imagination. We do tests. And we also know that when we give you drugs that impact those neurotransmitters, those chemicals, we see the symptoms get better. So we already know that. And we're so sophisticated that we have PET scans and special types of MRIs that can actually see the activity of these hormones in your brain in action. And so it's really important people get that. And also, I'll say this: all of these hormones are impacted by many factors. Guess what? One is trauma. So if you have trauma in your life, you're going to have these hormones negatively impacted. If you eat garbage in, garbage out, so your brain can't function well. Oh, by the way, serotonin is mostly made in your gut. So if you eat poorly, your serotonin hormone is going to be off. Oh, if you have social factors, if you're in a stressful environment, it's going to affect your hormones that then affect your mood. It shouldn't be surprising that a person in a tough environment may be more anxious or depressed. So I think the science supports that these things are true. But the most important message I tell my patients, that control your controllables. You can't necessarily move out of a tough neighborhood today, but you can impact how you eat. You can impact that you move your body, even if it's in your home. You can impact that you're going to listen to Anthony Robbins or Eric Thomas or, Les Brown. You can impact the fact
Or
that you
Terry
go to bed at a
Anderson.
reasonable time. So all of these things you focus on. Don't worry about what you can't control. So I'll wrap up with that, go to my next meeting. I'm just privileged for the opportunity. So thank you, Nikki and Congressman.
Nikki, if
Oh
I
no,
could,
thank you so much,
I'm
Dr.
gonna,
Hampton. Thank you.
Nikki, if I could,
Sure,
I'm going to be very
sure,
brief. Yeah,
sure.
I'm going to break down some of what we said and maybe unpacked it in some respects. And everybody's heard about this phenomenon called fight or flight, fight or fight. You get two options. Somebody comes up on you, and they put you in a situation. You might say, "Well, I'm going to run." You say, "Well, I'm going to fight." Everything that we talked about, those chemicals are released. They're in our body. And our body, when it feels threatened or it feels harmed, things are going to change. And it's happening at such a fast level we don't know. But all of us have these emotions. All of us have things going on. Some people manifest it differently than others. That doesn't mean that you have a mental or behavioral problem. It means that you're human. But sometimes there are some things that really can, over time, cause two things: mental or behavioral health problems. That's all. I don't want other people to think that maybe they got some of these things, or maybe I'm trying to demystify it. That's simply all it is. Something happens, an event happens, you react to it, and the brain is going to tell you to do something, and all of that is spurred by everything else we see.
All right. Well, Tyshawn, that I don't know if you remember the question, but the anonymous question was how much time did you do before you were exonerated? If you don't mind sharing, or if you can share.
I did 22 years. I was in there from 17, the age of 17 to 39. I'm 46 now.
You're
Okay.
still a
So
young man.
22
All
You
right.
got
Well,
years.
I
summer.
know you guys hate when I say this. Okay. Well, Mary Ballinger says, yes, Dr. Harrington. Let's keep Mr. McCoy uplifted. Sister Bonnie says, Mr. McCoy, God bless you and thank you for sharing. And then there's also a comment that says, thank you all once again for blessing us with this knowledge. So I know you guys hate to hear me say this. I know you do, but it's our time. So before we start our panel, and we're going to ask everyone to share their until next Monday. We're going to start our until next Monday. The doctor who says I threatened him to be here every Monday night, but he's always on time, had nothing to say tonight. And that's our very own Dr. James Miller. Dr. Miller, you start us off.
Right. Well, there was so much that was being said that seemed to be right on target that I didn't want to interfere. But one of the things that did come to mind that I was wanting, and Mr. McCoy answered this in not directly but in an indirect way, and that is the first thing to happen when a person is in a situation that is traumatic and causing conflict is to try or to adjust so that you can survive. And so survival is and we probably, most of us have that instinct to want to survive and to try to do those things that are necessary to help us survive. Sometimes we are successful, sometimes we're not as successful. But I think that when we are dealing with situation as his, that he's in a situation where he's been accused of something. He has no uh, where to turn, nowhere to reach. And this happened a lot in life. It might not be that you're incarcerated, but sometimes just the conflicts of life put us in a situation where we have to learn how to survive. And when I say learn how to survive, because oftentimes the violence and the other conflicts that we are seeing in our community is simply about the same kind of thing in a different way and for a different reason, is that people decided that this is how I'm going to survive. I'm not going to try to negotiate it. I feel that I'm threatened and I have to respond. But I think that the more that we can learn in terms of how we deal with stress and how those that are successful deal with stress, it's going to help us to survive those traumas of life that we all at one point in time, for one reason or another, going to share. So we have to learn that, and so we need to you use the research, and all the things that happen to us internally are really a reaction to what's going on outside of us or whatever it is that's causing us to be in the situation that we're in. Learn to survive.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so very much. Thank you so very much, Dr. Miller. I did say that we were going to do our until next month. There wasn't any more questions, but I have to share this comment because it's directed directly to the congressman. So I have a physician who wants to stay anonymous, and he says, I just want to thank this for always going out of the box. I am a physician from the Department of Corrections, and we see the in 90 days they are suffering from severe hypertension. I am glad to have this conversation. Congressman, can you go a little deeper into this on another Monday night? That would be great. So thank you for sharing. And I read your
Nikki appears to be having some
your
internet
until next
problems. I know
week.
she's going in and out.
So why don't you go ahead?
So mine until next Monday will be to salute you, Mr. McCoy, and send, we call it props, much respect to your journey. I know there are so many more people out there that are going to be blessed because of the journey you're walking. And you know what? Thank you for being so authentic and bringing your story here about the experiences you had and how that made you feel, and giving people the opportunity to hear and learn from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I don't
Yeah,
know,
I'm
Mr.
happy
Harrington,
to
did
go.
you get one already? Okay.
I'll go
No,
next.
no,
I
okay.
just want to say the same thing that Dr. Maya said, just a little bit differently. But Mr. McCoy, you're a man of courage and great humanity, and I'm very, very impressed. And thank you very much for appearing on the show tonight and sharing your story.
Thank you.
The second thing I want to talk about is misinformation and disinformation. When you say something and you don't know that it's right, that's misinformation. If you say something and you know that it's wrong, that's disinformation. And I would say that virtually everything that we're hearing coming out of a certain administration is most likely to be disinformation than the truth. So when you hear these things coming out of Washington, D.C., understand that for over 30 years, they've done extensive research on autism. It doesn't come from vaccines. The man who suggested that was thrown out of the medical society for fraud. The diagnosis of autism has changed in the last decade, and that's why we're seeing more of it. It has nothing to do with Tylenol or anything else. And so when you have people who don't know but pretend that they know, you tend to have a storyline like this. So always consider the source. Look at their credentials, look who's paying them, look at their motivations before you believe the story.
Okay, well, I guess I'm going last, and then it'll go to Congressman Davis. And I'm going to try to be brief, but I have a couple of things to say. And it really is something, Brother McCoy, that you said earlier about how you had to check yourself, early on, and you had to think about where you were going, the ramifications that you had to check yourself. One of the things that really inspired me a couple of weeks ago was a song by Yolanda Adams called Be Still. And I suggest if people haven't heard it, just listen to the song and listen to the lyrics. But what I have realized from that sometimes I have to take a moment and just be still, because there's so much noise out there that if I don't take a moment to check myself and where I am and what's going on, I think that's what you did, and that's what helped get you through. You took time to be still and assess the situation and really come to grips with who you were and how strong you were, and knew that you're going to get through this. That's what got you through those opportunities to really look inside you and bring the best of you out. And so I'd encourage, and that's one thing, I think that all of us need to take a moment, particularly in these times, to be still, check ourselves so that we don't do something that may get us in trouble. Because these are times where if you get in trouble, you may be going someplace that you really don't want to go. And we've already talked about that place. But the other thing, and I just want to share with you, There's a quote that I share with some friends, and I just read it about last week. It's from Ralph Waldo Emerson. Ralph Waldo Emerson. For every minute you are angry, you lose 60 seconds of happiness. That's it.
We saved the best for last, Mr. Harrington. That's why we didn't want to come after you. That's what was going on. All right, Congressman Davis, please.
Well, Mr. McCoy, any last words from you?
Uh, like I say, my life is just a mission to help, to encourage, to inform. And that's it.
Well, let me thank everybody for being with us. 8,000 African Americans are going to converge on Washington, D.C. this week, beginning on Wednesday, when we have our ALC that we do each year, our annual legislative conference. And I hope that something emerges during these 3-4 days that we can talk about next week when we come back. So thank you all for setting the stage. And we'll see what happens the rest of this week. And until next week, we'll see you then. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
You got anything to put in your pocket?